James is eating Basa fillets, baked potato, peas, and broccoli. And he's going to talk about Fahrenheit 11.9. So go ahead, James.
Yeah, so tune up the sound here, Michael Moore. You should be watching. So I don't, as threatened, have something to indicate a timeline. I'll be doing that hopefully. Well, not tomorrow. We're supposed to be. I don't think we'll be having what we call a deck dinner tomorrow. Snow's predicted overnight or sometime tomorrow. So it's going to be cold and snowy. Not conducive. But I'll give you a preliminary sort of feel for what's happening. Somewhere along the line. Weather system's moving in. It'll be a few days, actually. Yeah. So Michael Moore is going along in this thing. You know, it's one of his. Ever since he figured out he knew about politics, he might know a little bit about, you know, like local economics or stuff like that. But he's become some sort of a. Well, he's not quite considered as. His pronunciamentos maybe aren't considered as definitive as, let's say, Noam Chomsky. Oh, Chomsky, how could I make that mistake? But they're, you know, they're par for the course, and he has a real element. Oh, yeah. He's got this idea that American voters are hungry for a legitimate left-wing candidate. And then they'll vote for that person, man, woman, child, in droves, you know, like it'll be like the Lyndon Johnson crushing of the, he only got 61% of the vote, but that was a landslide, enough to get a landslide. Biggest landslide in American history up to that point, at least federal politics, presidential election, I should say. And, wow, I want to look at the facts. You know, he was saying, you know, when Americans are polled, they're for immigration. What? Not the sort of immigration that folks like Michael Moore want. They just want open field. Oh, we won't take Nazis and fascists. Yeah, but everything else. And I can guarantee you, the average American does not want everyone else. They don't want Nazis and fascists. A few would. But they don't want everyone else. They don't want commies coming from Guatemala across Mexico. Yeah, there was someone who was telling me early in the Trump administration, oh, you know, like there's net, you know, like people are leaving the United States. And then this stupid, you know, like people of color are leaving and somewhere. But my suspicion was throughout the Trump administration, people, I mean, how are, you know, officially they might have been, but people would have been drifting across the border. Come on. And not just from the south of the border, but would have been sneaking into Canada one way or another. And then, well, coming in officially to Canada and then sneaking across the American border. But this dumb commie was leading a group of people, you know, giving the lie to this person was saying. You know, they were indulging in intellectual dishonesty. Okay, intellectual dishonesty. So how much time? 20?
Lots.
Okay. So yeah, he brought a whole troop of people in. You know, like and making a big fuss. I'm sure they had children along. They were using children as hostages when they're coming across illegally. Oh, you know, like, oh, you can't. No, that's shameful. And you're bringing people across arid, semi-arid areas. The little kids. Well, you can't take me, can't touch me. Don't take my kid away from me. You know, exposing the kid to danger. Absolutely shameful. If you want to come into a country, you better announce it. So, yeah. So, this guy, I wasn't able to follow all of it. I mean, I was listening to it in the background. I heard enough to know that there were lots of lies going on. Yeah. So, what else was he saying? Oh, yeah, the average American's for gun control. Okay. I don't know what he should have been quoting polls, because the polls that I've run across are depressing. It seems like almost with every mass shooting, the support for gun control goes down in the United States. Now, maybe the polls are kind of have been messed around by the Russians and or Republican big money. I'm a little suspicious of some of the polls that show Bernie Sanders having huge support and all that sort of stuff. Putin was able to touch elections. Polls, theoretically, at least the security for polls would be even lower. Now, so there are a variety of things they're saying. Americans are supportive of this. Oh, their support for free university. Yeah, they would be. It depends on how you frame the question. Would you be willing to support free universities if your taxes had to be upped to support them? No. You know how you frame it? No. More, did he say higher pay for teachers? Would you be willing to pay higher taxes for higher wages? No, not for teachers, not for nurses, not for... Yeah. Free Medicare. Would you be willing to pay higher taxes for free Medicare? No. So I had a big long list of things that Americans were supposed to have believed in. And he didn't quote any of the polls. And we can tell what Americans want. The last few elections, 2016, 2020, were tainted by Russian interference, particularly 2016. 2020, it wasn't enough for Trump to steal the election as he did in 2016. It wasn't close enough. So let's look at the appeal for left-wingers. Americans generally would like something like sensible left-wing government. I'm talking something like FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or Harry Truman, following sensible, relatively sensible. But even as early as the FDR administration, no, it might have been Truman, there was one of the vice presidents of the United States ran, Wallace was his name, can't remember who he ran against, but he was splitting the Democratic Party vote. That guy's an evil person. Evil. Doesn't matter what his intentions were like. What did someone say? There might be an element of truth. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. You don't go around splitting the vote. If you're a left-winger and want to see things improved in the United States by starting up a third party, you don't do it. You don't do a Ross Perot. That's dumb. And Ross Perot wasn't evil when he did that. He was just stupid. But when you're a left-winger and you do that, you're evil. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. When you start a third party and split the left-wing vote, you're evil. So that applied to that guy, I believe his name was Wallace, back in I think it was the 40s. And then let's look at how left-wingers appealed after that. The left-wingers were in power, relative left-wingers, for 20 years. Elected 52.
Like you were telling me about the Chicago riots and how there was a Democrat in power there at the time.
Yes, there was. Then Bays Johnson. I mean, he puts through some amazingly I won't even just say liberal
And we see that time and
legislation.
time again. When liberals are in power, then somehow more extreme left-wingers maybe, or just other left-wingers, or they end up getting out in the streets and demonstrating, and there's civil unrest and whatever, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it when the liberals are in power?
Yep. So that applies
What's
to
wrong with
blacks
you?
in the United States, African Americans in the United States
It makes
during
me
the
think
Johnson
that really it's
administration.
instigated by right-wingers. That they're actually poking people, go
It makes you
riot,
suspicious.
go
I
protest.
think some of it is just, that there are certain freedoms given, and then people push. So an example is, I believe, 64. Lyndon Johnson pushed through, and it involved a lot of pushing. There were a lot of people didn't, even Democrats that were Dixiecrats, Southern Democrats, wouldn't have been thrilled about it. Civil rights legislation. I believe it was 64. What happens? Now I don't know if it happened right after it, or during it, or before, but they had riots. Where was it? I believe it was in Harlem. Big riots in 64. Huh. Like that's not a good advertisement. It looks as though, people kind of sitting on the fence and saying, folks get their freedom, and then all of a sudden they're committing violent acts. It's violent to burn stuff down. It doesn't matter if it's your own neighborhood, particularly when you're, putting X's on places that are operated by blacks and or African Americans, and it's open season on places operated by white folks or Jews, or and understand Jews come from Asia. Get it straight. There's been some intermixture. In some cases, quite a bit. You run across people with blonde hair and blue eyes, but yeah. So that's where they came from originally. That's where they came from. They're not Europeans. And nowadays it'd be Korean stores. Okay, open season on them when we have a riot. And that's not okay. That's like Kristallnacht. Only it's done by people of color. It's the same mentality, I'm sorry.
Oh, and did you talk about the stats?
About?
Well, Michael Moore was showing stats.
About?
He was showing figures. This percent of Americans want post-secondary, free post-secondary
Did he actually show
education.
stats there?
Well, he was showing percentages, right?
Oh, he did?
Numbers on the board.
Well, I didn't see that. I just heard that. Did he actually quote where the studies were? Because I've already mentioned that. That's absolutely like the thing for gun control. Maybe the studies that I've run across, but it'd be like in the Globe and Mail and Financial Post, fairly right wing, but and like Globe and Mail is kind of like the Republicans or the Conservative Party, kind of like globalists. But the Financial Post is borderline left bar. But at any rate,
and I mean, if you ask me, I'm a left winger, James a left winger. And if you asked us, do you think that post-secondary education should be free? And I'd say, yeah, if I were polled. But then if you said, well, where's the money coming from for that? Is it coming from, like, off the backs of working people? Like, I was in the library the other day, and there's like James got parked in. He was parked out in the handicap parking spot, and somebody decided that they didn't even have a handicap placard on their vehicle, but they decided they didn't want to find a parking spot elsewhere, so they went right up to the door, which happened to be blocking James from getting out, right? And so anyway, they were there actually transporting somebody who was handicapped, and he just hasn't went through the paperwork of getting recognized as being handicapped yet. They were filling that out at the desk for him. So
what they should have
they
done
were filling
is
out his AISH work.
drop that fellow off with a security guard, gone and parked.
Well, they didn't need. He didn't. He could walk plenty fine. They didn't
The
need to be.
handicap guy.
They didn't need to be taken
that's
right to the
fascinating.
door anyway.
Oh, okay.
It was just really inconsiderate. So anyway,
And now that I think about it, they could have just parked in handicap.
yeah, because there was a
There
spot
was room.
available.
Yeah.
But in any case, that just for some reason they decided they wanted to go right in front of the door. Now, if you look in yearbooks, like student yearbooks for Lethbridge, you won't find too much color. And think what you want of it, but Lethbridge has just recently become a bigger city, become a city, and usually when people immigrate into Canada, they end up going to big cities. So they didn't come here, and now all of a sudden they're coming here. And James has talked about how all of a sudden we're seeing a lot of color around, and he gets threatened right beside my house in the alley with a knife. He gets threatened downtown by somebody
Who didn't like the fact that I was social distancing.
Exactly.
This was in the
here
COVID
he
era.
gets parked in. Somebody's double parked him in, and that's never happened to us before at the library. But
I'm handicapped.
he's handicapped and he gets double parked in. And yes, in all these cases, people look to be from, of African origins or whatever. They had darker complexions, and anyway.
So I've been told by
So-
my parents that I have some of my ancestors
And
that
there'd
have been
be-
here for 10,000 years.
There'd be a lot of people, like, James doesn't get so upset about this. Well, I'm sure he got upset by being threatened with a knife and threatened to be beat up. I mean, he's
I'm still upset about it. I'm frosted.
crippled.
I can't run away from them the
No,
way I
he's-
did before I got the...
So, I mean, that's there's a lot of people that wouldn't be as understanding as James, and they'd be shaking their head going, don't let him in. Don't let any of them in ever again. Just from one of those experiences.
It's kind of traumatic.
And I mean, a lot of people would be looking at this guy getting his AISH paperwork filled out for him and going, how did he get citizenship? Why is he even here? People would be thinking, we're being told the marketing is on this whole immigration thing is, oh, well, they're going to work and this and that, and we don't have
Help
a
us
young
out in our old age.
Yeah. Oh, really? The guy who's going on AISH that you're now a slave for. He's just come over. He's getting on AISH.
One time.
Why? How does that help you out while you're working? I mean, my dad would tell me about how it was for man. He'd and I'd see my mom working hard, and then I'd hear stories from my dad about, and I know how hard he worked on the farm. He was working hard all the time, and same with my grandpa. And then in the wintertime, if you didn't have animals to take care of, or you didn't have, enough that you couldn't, that you had to go and work out, right? So farmers up north, Peace Country, they'd go work on the oil rigs, or they'd go work in pulp mill or something like that, right? A sawmill. And like Dad would tell me about the sawmill, how you'd get on night shift because that's what you'd get. And it was really dangerous work. You were tired, but here you have the saw that you're working all the time, and it's very dangerous work while you're tired. And he's saying, but you're almost thankful for that horrible, deafening scream of the saw blade because it keeps you awake a bit, right? And then he's saying, it's no better on the oil rig. You get on in the oil rig in the winter, and you're on the platform, and it's minus 20 or more, or colder, and you're on the platform, and you're soaked in oil, so you're freezing all the time, and there's trains just whipping by your head and stuff, and
You're slipping and sliding,
yeah.
for sure.
So I felt for him, right? And there's a lot of guys too. They hear all about affirmative action or whatever, like, and they love their wives or their mothers or their sisters or whatever, and but they're working these jobs that no woman would ever be able to work or would want to work, and there's nothing better for them because of, you know, the better jobs are going to people who check the minority box or the women that they know.
Or
and
the majority.
And so, anyway, so I can understand how people feel about that. But, I mean, if you asked a lot of the people who, like people like my dad, they'd say, yeah, we're for immigration, we're for all these things, you know, and whatever. But at the same time, if you ask them, well, are you for just immigration for everyone, anyone who wants it? They'd be like, if you said, well, what about people from Guatemala or something, where the crime rate, where the murder rate is way higher, or
it might be 38 times higher than it is in Canada.
Do you want them coming?
Almost surely 19 times higher. No, that's not plus 19. That's 19 times higher. We got a high murder rate here.
You can't take everyone. So should we discriminate against the people who are passive and actually want to work, so that we can get some aggressive people who want to kill us in and not want to work?
So Pauline's absolutely right. We can't take everyone.
No.
Over the last little while, the world has added 1 billion people every decade. That's 100 million people a year. So we got one nifty, shifty, hefty lefty.
And especially when you are from a country where your population is going down, the native people of the country, their population is going down. They've stopped increasing their numbers because they realize, oh, the environment's in trouble, this and that, and yet they're being told, oh yeah, bring in more immigrants because we need to, you know, increase the number of workers or whatever. And they're going, what? You made me not have children. You were giving me all this marketing against me having my own children. Now I'm supposed to take in everybody else's children. They're not slowing down their birth rate.
No.
So what are they thinking? So if you really, Michael Moore's stats, it's like, yeah, if you look at those, I would agree with all those, but then I want some stipulations. And most people would be the same.
Yeah. So they were just asking mindless questions. They didn't mean anything. So I was mentioning the gun thing. People are for gun control. The stats that I've run across with polls indicate, I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to keep on repeating it. Every time, well, it's not every time, but as the mass murders have gone up and up in the United States, the support for gun control has gone down. Down, 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 down. I don't know where he gets that stuff, and he should have specified, and he should have said, here's the exact questions asked. Because that's absolutely key. How are these questions framed? So the ultimate answer to the question is in voting. So after Truman, the Americans had voted for Democrats, quite left-wing Democrats, particularly by today's standards, for 20 years in a row. 20 years in a row. And they were able to achieve some amazingly positive things. And they handled the economy. Understand, they were taxing, they were spending, but it was having wonderful results in the economy. How much on 5?
Oh yeah.
There we go.
I don't know how you estimate it so well.
Yeah. Anyway.
Practice, I guess.
Anyway. So what happens after Truman? Oh, here's Eugene McCarthy, a nifty, shifty, hefty lefty from 1968. He was running. He helped divide, not so much the vote, but
I'll bring it to
lefties.
them. Yeah.
Okay, well, it might have some gunk on it, but it should be okay.
They'll think that's extra, like seasoning.
Nothing that's going to choke.
They'll love it.
Anyway, Adlai Stevenson. So Eugene McCarthy, when Adlai Stevenson died, it was something like, let's not have this prophet unappreciated, amongst his own. So what was Adlai Stevenson like? Big hero, eh? What happened to him at 52? Got his hindquarters handed to him. Well, there was a lefty, big hero of the lefties. What? They ran him again. 56, got his hindquarters handed to him. Wow. Americans don't like lefties maybe as much as Michael Moore would have you believe. Then JFK moved to the center, got elected. He's from what I can tell with these nifty, shifty, hefty lefties, they actually prefer Eisenhower to Kennedy. And I'm going, oh, you stupid idiot. Eisenhower had 3 recessions in 8 years. You almost have to work at it to do that. 3 recessions in 8 years. Check out the stats. I could be making it up. You should be skeptical about anything I say. You should know better than be cynical about anything I say. But check it up. 3 recessions in 8 years. Whew, that's amazing. That's more recessions, 2 more recessions than the Democrats had between 1947 and up until COVID. 2 more. 3 times the number. Check the stats. You'll find the Democrats in that period only had 1. That's up until Biden, okay? I don't know what happened during Biden's administration with COVID. There might have been a short recession there. Huh? 3 times as many as the Democrats had. And what is that? That's like 70 years. 70 years in 8 years. And JFK handled the economy well. He wasn't, he kind of was hard buttocked with communists, but he was pretty mild with them. But when you look at the way communists are, they're really hard buttocked people. Oh, horrible. They're terrorists. And Lyndon Johnson, he got elected. And he was pretty left-wing, but he's considered right-wing by these idiots. Okay, so he got elected. Well, Adlai Stevenson, left-wing, didn't get elected. Kennedy moved to the center. Lyndon Johnson was more left-wing, I think, than Kennedy, but we'll say it was right-wing. Right-wing. Oh, they got elected. Hubert Humphrey was, they would probably consider him right-wing. He didn't get elected. So it's 2-1 as opposed to 0-2. And then we go along to, Jimmy Carter was 1 for 2. So, and then George McGovern, he's horrible. So all of a sudden we've got the lefties losing 2 with Adlai Stevenson, McGovern losing 3, Jimmy Carter won 1, and he lost 1. So we've got 4 losses to 1 win. Whereas with the so-called right-wingers, Kennedy, Johnson, and Jesus Christ, sorry for cussing. That's 2-1, as opposed to 1-4. You see, Americans don't like people who hang out way on the left wing. They don't when it comes to voting. How much time?
About 10 seconds. Wrap her
10
up.
seconds. So you'll be hearing more. Mike, you turn in and take the earplugs out of your ears.